Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our Learn TV stream for Mixed Reality Dev Days, as well as for those of you tuning in on our other streams as well. We are going to transition to a lovely conversation with Jesse McCulloch. Thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Super excited.
Yes, super excited. Jesse is a PM within the developer ecosystem in our Mixed Reality team. And if you tuned in for the keynote, he just delivered our keynote earlier today. But Jesse, I would say the last time we all met for Mixed Reality Dev Days was actually virtually in Altspace, right?
Altspace, yeah. So 2020, we were 4 months into the pandemic, 3 months into the pandemic, and had to quickly figure out how we were going to transition to a virtual event. And with Altspace being one of our own properties, we thought, hey, this would be a really great experiment to try this out and see how it was. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Cassie, you came as well, right?
I did. I was lucky enough to host and be a part of it, and I just thought it was so neat to be able to connect with people in that way. Like, I'm a big Altspace VR fan and VR fan in general, but creating an experience where you could actually like walk around and talk to people and kind of have like that hallway talk, I really liked that part. It was cool.
Yeah, and I was there as well. I was watching in the virtual stands, if you will. So it was pretty cool. Definitely enjoyable. But with regards to this year's Mixed Reality Dev Days and the keynote, there was a lot that you uncovered during that time. And let's say if we start at the top, just your own background. If you can just tell us a bit more, just your origin story, I would say, coming into this space.
Yeah, so when HoloLens was announced in 2015, I saw the announcement. It was at a Windows event. It was like this, kind of a secret that nobody really had seen it, and they brought this device out, and I was like, immediately, I want that thing. Like, this is the future. Like, it was just amazing. And I remember, setting up search keywords on Cortana and wanting to know all the news about it, and just super excited. And I hadn't been that excited about something like this in a really long time.
Yeah.
So when they put out applications for the developer program, I filled it out, and there was like 5 questions on it. It was like, what amazing thing are you going to build with this technology? And like 5 very similar questions of that. And I was just like, I don't know. I just really want one. And I was like, I'm the last person that's going to get one of these things because I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I didn't give them any reason to give me one.
Yeah.
And so they started doing HoloLens 1 out in waves because they were literally shipping them from China to your door as they came off the factory line.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I get this email. It says, congratulations, you're in wave 1. I'm like, these guys are crazy. They have no idea what they're doing. And so I've been fortunate enough to had just getting a bonus of work, so I had the money to spend on it, and it was still an agonizing decision because it's not a cheap device. At that point, it was $3,000 for the developer kit, and like no idea how I'm going to make that money back. I had no Unity experience. I'd never done anything 3D. I was a server-side JavaScript developer at the time. I knew C#, but had never done Unity, so it was really kind of a pivotal moment of deciding, like, am I going to make this investment on something that's not proven? And I pulled the trigger, and I immediately fell in love with it. So I get the shipping notification from FedEx that it's coming from China, and I'm like hitting refresh every 5 minutes, watching it, make its way across the ocean to me. And I had it delivered to my work at the time, and it came in, and I told my manager, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure how productive I'm going to be today. And he's like, as long as I get to try it, he's like, I don't really care. So it got passed around the office. But it was, in those early moments of it, when there was only a few applications out there, but they were really spectacular. You had RoboRaid and HoloTour and kind of these really well-produced applications, and it just immediately hit home like how spectacular this technology is.
Yeah, and so with that one, you started off with the first edition, and then the 2 came, and I can only imagine how you felt when you finally had your chance to get a 2.
Yeah, so I mean, by that point I was working at Microsoft, so in between that I'd started working and building a developer community, because when you're one of the first people to have it, you can't go to like Stack Overflow and be like, hey, how do I use this thing? So started getting a mass of people together and started doing community events, and came to the attention of Microsoft, started working with some of the employees on the team, and then worked my way into a job here. So
I love the story, like your story of how you got into it, because I love stories like with non-traditional paths, as we talked about a little bit earlier. but then also just like it feels like one of those meant to be like stories. Like you were the first wave and it just worked out, and then on top of it, you just were truly inspired by what the product was capable of. And like you were able to see what was possible. Like even though it was still very new and there was a couple good experiences, you were inspired to see like this is the future. Like this is what I want to be doing. Like I love it.
And pardon the pun, but the reality is like we haven't even seen what's possible. Like there's so much out there that we haven't even tapped into with the creativity of developers, and that's why I really love working with this community, is because it's just like this untapped resource of amazingness, and we're just waiting to see it unlocked in the right way.
Yeah, and I think when you have a chance to finally get a device, whether it's our HoloLens or some of the other devices that are on the market, it's a certain feeling that you get where it's just like, oh my goodness. And Jesse, you actually gave me my first HoloLens, but like funny story, I remember we met up here on campus and you had gave me a chance to try out the HoloLens 2, and I'm just like, this is amazing. And then it's just like, so here's your one that you're going home with. It's like, oh, great, definitely grateful. But even working with the first edition in itself, just from the perspective of having never worked with any headset of any capacity, it was just amazing. And then having the chance to then work with the 2 and just some of the new features that had come along at that point, it was just really great, I would say. And it really changed a lot for me, I would say. And so I'm very grateful to have like had a chance to connect with you and your team.
Yeah,
my own journey.
I mean, we met through Twitter.
Yeah, we met through Twitter. Yeah.
So yeah, one of those happenstance of, I happened to catch a conversation that you were having, and we started talking, and all the stars aligned again. And
I think you've inspired a lot of people to get into it, though. Like I think there's like we're like one or like two of like many a line of people that have been inspired by the work that you do, and you've encouraged. And I just think that positivity and allyship in the community is super important.
I appreciate that.
It means a lot.
It does.
Yeah, because I will even say, from, just given that this industry as a whole, like things like VR, for example, has been around for years. Augmented reality, from a conceptual perspective, just XR in general, has definitely been around for years. But in most recent years, we're seeing more popularity gained. So with that said, this isn't necessarily one of those industries where you're going to find a big handful of people who are saying like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like that doesn't exist. You have some of those folks.
There's no experts yet.
Yeah, there's no experts. And so with that said, because there are so many folks who are just getting started, I think having folks who are in places in the industry to provide resources, such as yourself, for example, be able to provide guidance on suggestions and path of learning, for example, programs that are put in place to provide access just in general to both education and hardware to underrepresented communities, for example. And that's a lot of what I do here at Microsoft too, as well as some other folks. But having those things in place, I think, really makes a big difference. And I'm always pushing for folks who have kind of been here for a while to, reach back and help people. It definitely, helps for sure. And you just never know whose life you're going to change. I mean, if we think about it, like had it not been really for Jesse catching that conversation, I don't know if I'd be on this couch. Like that's how big of a impact people can have on others, And so I think it's always important to keep that in mind. And like for you, I don't know how much of a difference it has made, but I would say having that community help has like definitely made a big difference. And so as I'm thinking back to the keynote, so we got a bit more of a background on you, and then we also went on a little bit of a historical tour of Mrtk as well, and just even to you were there as well for those moments. Can you just tell us a bit kind of like what that was like back then?
Yeah, I mean, Mrtk has a long history. When HoloLens first released, there was no toolkits for it, and we had these amazing experiences, but no way to even try and replicate them. And with the first HoloLens, very much similar to what you have today. When you place an object, it's got some kind of buttons in them that look really nice, and those are built into the shell. And as a developer, you want to be able to emulate that, because when you see the UI that the device is designed for, you want to emulate it and you want to try and do that. And there's just it was super hard because there was no tools to do it.
Yeah.
And so Microsoft released the Holo Toolkit, and it definitely wasn't even the UI components at that point. It was just a lot of trying to get the just some of the basics down, text to speech and being able to listen for voice commands.
Yeah.
Because at that point we couldn't reach out and grab stuff. So
Yeah.
you could either do the air tap, which was really,
little
really
air
hard
tapping.
for that,
Yeah.
or you had voice commands, and developers had to go implement all that themselves.
Yeah.
And so as we as a community kind of understood better of what tools we needed, this open source toolkit was super important because it gave people the ability to not only go consume that stuff, but also go and help add back to it. And as they built different things and components in their own apps, those got ported back into Holo Toolkit.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of one of the pivotal pieces, I think, for growing our developer community, is having, these tools to go build apps.
Yeah. It definitely helps, and we talked about it for a moment earlier before the prior session with regards to just how challenging that would have been to create something with literally no toolkit at all. And as I'm like thinking back to even some of the most simplest things that I feel at least to be simplest things that I've created, and just how much more work that would have taken. So I feel like you all who were part of that generation of like beginners, I would say, you definitely have like come a long way and have really paved the way for a lot of what's available now, which I think is really, really impactful.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned it in the keynote, but there was a long list of contributors.
Yes.
And that is so important to recognize people from the community, because people don't, open source is amazing.
Yeah.
And Microsoft loves it. It's a big deal for us. But generally people don't go, I'm going to go contribute to an open source project because I just absolutely have this thing for open source projects. People do it because they have a need and they use it, and then they want to give back. And so recognizing when somebody takes the time to actually go through that process of giving back and doing a pull request and getting the feedback from the maintainers and going through, because there's definitely steps involved to get a pull request accepted.
Yeah.
So recognizing that people have done that and have contributed to it is super important, because if people don't get that recognition for the work that they put into it, that's just a total fail on us as community people's job.
Yeah, for sure. And for yourself, even just from an open source perspective, like you want that recognition, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I think also just like when it comes to contributing to open source, like I know for me for a really long time, I was like scared to do it.
Yeah.
Because you get scared of the judgment. Like it's really scary to put a PR in to an open source project, and you want to make sure, you did everything right, and it works on your machine. Is it gonna break the build or whatever the things are? And so I think putting that time in, learning the project too, because in order to do a good PR, you have to really reverse engineer a lot of like what's there. And so all the time they took to not only do that and then learn the process, go through it. And the product I work on at Microsoft is an open source product as well. So I'm still very like engaged in that community, but I think it took me a while personally to like get comfortable with like contributing to open source. So is there like good resources for people if they want to get started contributing to Mrtk, or like what would you kind of?
So I get the scared thing, because it's daunting. I always tell people like the easiest place to go contribute to open source is in documentation.
Oh my gosh, I was going to talk about that. So because I was going to say, contributing to open source in my head used to always be some big feature that was life-changing, until someone had reached out to me once about it and had asked, had I ever contribute to anything? I was like, no, I don't do that. That's not me. And then I had mentioned though, but sometimes I do things with docs, and they're like, well, that's open source. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess that is true. So I'm more of a contribute through documentation type of gal. That's my jam, because I will love adding whatever additional information needs to be added. But it's just as important though, and to your point, that's a really good entryway.
If you polled devs, I would bet 9 out of 10 of them hate writing documentation. It's always the thing that's like the last thing done, and nothing against devs. Like I'm horrible at documentation myself, but like it's the last thing done. It's as it goes out the door, and even catching typos. Like I make typos in my documentation all the time, and I get pull requests for them, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Like every little bit counts.
Oh,
and it's a great place to start.
And that's like, I think the fun part is building it. Like, and then you're like, oh man, now I got to go document everything I did. And then sometimes you've tried to do things so many different ways that sometimes it's hard to go back and document what you built too. Like to actually go through and document the process and all of that. But yeah, no, it's true. Documentation is super important. And when a product doesn't have good documentation,
oh my goodness,
it is so hard to use it. It's like, I don't want to have to go to your source code and reverse engineer it in order to figure out how to use it. And I know with early products, that's what it is, you know. But yeah, so documentation definitely counts as a super important part.
But it's a good entryway. It's a good entry point, I would say,
I agree.
For open source. But even beyond that, though, for folks who are more of the, I don't know about documentation, but what about some code? Like, what would be a good starting point for them?
Code's always good. A lot of open source repositories will tag stuff as like these are kind of the easier issues that we would like to see resolved, and we just haven't gotten to them yet. So going into GitHub and looking through the issues, and even just commenting and making comments on the issues, and getting to know the maintainers and the people who are, actively working on that project through that is also super helpful, because then you start building a rapport with the maintainers, and then it becomes like, okay, what are the priorities of this project? And that's another really great way to kind of get involved is to start building those relationships.
Yeah. And also just for folks to know, especially our open source projects, people are actually like checking out the repo from our end and seeing what's coming in. And I know we talked about Nick earlier, but he's a really good example for someone like StereoKit, for example. Does a really good job at checking out what gets submitted in there. But just in general, also I would say from thinking about how or why to contribute to open source, if there happens to even be an issue that you resolved yourself, like I can guarantee you there's someone out there who had that problem. I mean, for those of you who are tuning in, who are developers, I can guarantee you've probably had some very specific question at least once in your dev journey, and you happen to type it into a browser, and lo and behold, someone also had the same question. And the same thing happens with various different products and tools that we use as well. So, help yourself and others.
If you do this long enough, you may even Google something and find your own answer that you answered on Stack Overflow to something.
Yes, that, you know what, I'm going to admit. So even though I've written books on Python, I still have had times where from a VS Code perspective, I have to go back to my VS Code book to see what I wrote about something, because, we can only have so much information in our head,
nobody can
That's why we have computers with big hard drives, so we don't have to remember stuff.
Exactly. And so, in addition to the news around Mrtk3, we did hear some information with regards to remote rendering. So we'll speak with Andrew more about that tomorrow. There was also something you mentioned about being on a ship. And
moving platform mode. So this is something we just released a few months ago. It was in kind of our insider builds for a while before that. But we were getting a lot of customer requests for like ships out on the ocean or oil rigs, and these they don't move at a fast rate. But like I mentioned in the keynote, the HoloLens uses kind of two things to determine its position. There's an IMU that figures out its rotation and the movement, and then it has visual cameras. And so a lot of times when you're on a ship, you're doing movements where the entire room is moving around you at the same rate. So the visual cameras don't notice any movement, but the IMU senses that it's tilting and stuff. And so that really confuses the placement. And so you get holograms that like move around on you, and
they're moving with you.
Yeah. Which, when they get headlocked, then it starts making you sick, because that's not a very comfortable feeling. So that's one thing we want to avoid. But, HoloLens 2 is known for like, when you place a hologram somewhere, the tracking on it is really, really solid. And so stuff stays world locked exactly where you put it. And so in doing this, moving platform mode, what we do is we basically give a way to go in and say, go in and disconnect those two sensors from being tied together, and only take the readings from like the IMU, or take the readings from that and process it in a different way, so that those holograms still stay locked, and you start getting these use cases of being able to use them on ships or oil platforms. which you wouldn't think is like, well, how super necessary is that? But when you look at tools like remote assist,
Yeah, it's necessary.
being able to
Yeah.
call in a remote expert and have them see what you're seeing and be able to put stuff in the scene and direct you when you're 150 miles offshore,
Yeah.
like rather than flying somebody out there and being down for 2 days or however long it is, that starts becoming critical.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then after that, we started getting car companies. So Volkswagen just did a blog post last month, and they're kind of reimagining what a heads-up display in a car would be. And so it's a really cool blog post if people go out and search for it.
Yeah.
But they show like taking sensor data from the car and doing pedestrian warnings. So when somebody's crossing the street, you get a heads-up display that somebody's crossing the street and stuff like that. So.
Sounds like some AI is being put into
Yeah,
there.
well,
Correct
so my car
people.
has like a display, like a heads-up display, like, and I can see like my GPS shows on that, and like I can also control like my radio and stuff on it, and I really like it. And I'm always like, this is augmented reality. But like, how does that work with the HoloLens? Like, am I still wearing it? Because I haven't seen this blog post. It sounds really interesting. I want to check it out. But yeah, I want to know more about like how that would actually work.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's more about the theoretical of what it'll be in the future. So,
Okay.
like today, people are not going to put on a HoloLens and drive around in their car. It's just not realistic. Like as much as I would love that to be the world that we are in,
I'm going to take a picture when I get home now. Like,
right? That's just not the reality of it.
Yeah.
But with each iteration of these devices, as we unlock these scenarios and stuff, it gives people the ability to go innovate and start experimenting now, knowing that over time the hardware is going to get better, it's going to get smaller, it's going to become more socially acceptable, and rather than wait until that happens, let's do the experimentation now and get ready for it to happen, because we know it's going to. There's too many of us working on it between us and Google and Meta and Apple. Like it's coming, and so let's figure this out now, because there's no experts now, but by the time that comes, there could be.
Yeah, there could be.
And so that's why it's a super exciting time to get in and be a dev in this space. Is there's so much opportunity.
Yeah,
that's what gets me so excited.
I'm just so excited.
I love seeing the excitement around it too, because like when we've been in it for a little while, right? And when you're kind of in the niche community before like the rest of the world has gotten into it. But now I've had so many people, like even non-technical people, that knew I was obsessed with VR, because I loved getting people to try like either the HoloLens or virtual headset for the first time. And now they're coming to me, hey, I actually have a Quest now, and they're all excited about it, and they
Remember
get
that
it.
time we played Beat Saber?
Yeah.
And now I have it, and that's my workout at home.
Yeah.
Totally. There's so many people that I'm like the first one that they played Beat Saber, because I was like, you have to. And if they say no, I'm like, please, like this is life changing, But I mean, like just those things, seeing the investment in the space and the excitement around different things is, I think, what's also going to help push it forward, right? Because like now that people are paying attention, things start to move faster because there's more people and there's more things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of innovation and just experimenting, you also talked about the hackathon.
Yeah, so super excited about this. It's running in conjunction with Dev Days.
Okay.
So we're running it for a month. It's an online hackathon through DevPost, which is a platform that runs online hackathons. So you can get matched up with a team, working on Mrtk3. So all the stuff that we're learning about today in here and tomorrow is immediately useful. Also Stereo Kit. So that's super exciting. And in those Stereo Kit sessions, we're going to work on getting up on demand so people have access to those real soon.
Good.
But so $17,500 in prizes.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Get ready to buy yourself a HoloLens.
Motivation.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just super excited to see what people build, and we announced the theme as a new way to solve old problems.
Love the theme.
Yeah.
And also I think it's good to point out, because they can use the emulator too if they don't have a device. Because I think that's one thing, I think most people might be aware of that now, but just in case, if you don't have a device, you can use the emulator and you can still participate and build something amazing.
And that's one of the great things about, especially with Mrtk, is actually within Unity, you can use the simulator. So you don't even have to build an emulator. You can actually just do it in Unity play mode.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, and it's, conceptually, it's hard to figure out what a mixed reality app is like if you've never used a device. Admittedly, that's one of the hardest things for new people to wrap their heads around. But once you've kind of wrapped your head around that, you realize that our tools are still early, our build processes are still early, and so sometimes like if you build out to the device, it can take a little while. So having that immediate press play, being able to move the hands around and simulate in the editor really helps ramp up your dev time.
And setting breakpoints and stuff too, and just making sure that you're not getting an error before you spend the time pushing the device to build and test. I think that was, I've used that now that you say that in the Unity one. So is that just Unity or is that in Unreal too?
I'm not sure about Unreal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know for sure Unity. So I'm sure the dev post probably mentions this, but for the hackathon, people can form teams.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a limit?
Not only can you form teams, but they actually have a really great kind of team matching or team building process where you can go on and people can post their ideas and you can say, hey, I'm interested, here's what I do, and kind of organically build teams that way.
Okay, do you have a maximum?
I think it's 5.
Okay.
But the details are definitely on dev post.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good. I would say from experience with doing hackathons, it's good to have, as for anyone that's interested in joining the hackathon, I would say, especially if you're looking at team formation, what I found to be super helpful, to get a nice varied mix of experiences and background, because if everyone just has one skill set, it can become a challenge trying to do some other aspects.
There's actually been studies like the more diverse your team is, the more likely you are to win because you have all those different viewpoints, and so you just ultimately get a better product. So definitely.
Well, and even you go to any company that does development, you never go in and have a team of 5 devs with no PM and no designer and no UX person. That's not how it works in the real world. So trying to go do that in a hack, it's really not a formula for success.
And so let's say I'm brand new, just learned about Mrtk today. Could I still do, not me as April, but could I still do the hackathon, or do I need a certain skill set, or is that okay?
No, absolutely. You can still join the hackathon. We've got a lot of great resources. Our documentation is actually really pretty solid.
Yeah.
We do office hours, so if you have questions, you can call in. We've got a couple of them in events in Altspace where you can come and meet some of the engineers from the Mrtk team.
Awesome.
We've got office hours, so if you have questions, you can call in and get a little bit of help. So lots of support, lots of resources to help get started for somebody that's brand new.
I think I kind of just want to hang in Altspace with the,
I know,
the support.
Right?
You all should come and join us.
Oh, for sure. That would be great. So that's good then. So if you are more new, it is a good opportunity. That's honestly how I got a bit more ramped up in everything mixed reality, was by doing a hackathon when I first got started, because granted the time frame was significantly smaller. We had 2.5 days for that particular hackathon.
I remember.
That's so hard.
So but given that you have an entire month, I would say, especially if you're new, or even if you're a bit more seasoned in this space, attend those events where there's time for folks to come and ask questions, because not only do you have a chance to actually speak directly to folks from the product team, but you can also meet people in the industry too, and you can meet other folks and learn more about what they're doing as well. So it's also just good from a networking perspective too to attend those things. And I think sometimes they might get taken for granted, and so it's always great to go and participate, and especially if you're doing the ones in Altspace, because you don't necessarily need the device.
No, you can join Altspace from a desktop, from a Quest. Lots of ways to get into Altspace.
Is there going to be a virtual showcase at the end, or how are we going to be able to see the cool things people build?
So DevPost, I think one of the things that we ask is that you create a video of your submission, so that people who don't have devices can do it. But also, we require that you be able to run them on device, and a lot of people end up putting their projects on GitHub, so you can go download them and try them and check out what they've been doing. And then we will do an award ceremony in Altspace where we give out the prizes and whatnot.
So cool.
We'll have to attend that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'll have to attend that.
You guys are always welcome.
Of course, yes. Yeah, it's always fun hanging out with you all. And from the events that I've gone to, and I know even Nick, for example, I know he did an Altspace couple things when they had the Stereo Kit hackathon some time ago. And just being able to just speak with some of the folks. And just for me, I think also hearing from people who participated in those events, and they're like, well, I've been using this for X amount of time, and it's like, wow, like people are actually like legitimately have been using different tools that we have, which is really, really great. So for me, it's just always kind of makes me feel good knowing that like people are doing these things. And
hearing from the community is always inspiring.
Yeah.
And so I love those types of things where you can actually start seeing what people are building, what inspires them. Also the challenges too. Like one of the things is I think people don't realize like we want to hear the challenges because that helps us understand. Like we like to hear the good stuff. We like to see the cool things, but also understanding what's not working is important too.
What's hard? Like what can we do to make things easier? The more we can make things easier, the more people we can get on board, and this becomes a wave of self-fulfilling prophecy almost of getting developers on there. The other part of it too is this is a super small community, but it's a super welcoming community.
That's a good point.
So being able to come in and meet other people, I've got friends that are here today that have been to every Dev Days with us and to the community events, and like I see them and I get super excited, and so getting in and talking to other developers that are joining these hackathons and events is super key.
Yeah, it's really important. And then you mentioned also one of our MVPs. You shared one of the projects that he had created. And in general, though, for the folks who may not know too much about our MVP program, I know you help lead that from the MR side. So can you speak more to the MVP program?
Yeah, so the Microsoft MVP program, it's Microsoft-wide, and it's a way for Microsoft to recognize people who are community members, not Microsoft employees, but community members who show technical excellence and are really big on sharing their technical knowledge with the community. So a lot of times they're prolific bloggers, or they do a bunch of workshops, or they go to a lot of conferences and talk, and it's really about how they're taking their knowledge and using it for the good of the community. And so Microsoft awards them this MVP award, and so to become an MVP, you have to be nominated either by another MVP or by a Microsoft employee. And then you fill out an application. You kind of talk about all the stuff that you've done over the last year. And then it goes through a couple of review processes. And then depending on which award category, and there's ones for AI, there's IoT, Windows, mixed reality, there's a whole bunch of them. And Azure's got like 400 because there's a million Azure services, which is amazing. But once you kind of say which part of this you're going for, people from the product group actually go and kind of review. And so that's something that I get to do, is I get to go review all these entries for mixed reality, and I look at things like what are their community contributions, how active are they, are they generally just doing good in the community? And then once you get accepted into the program, it comes with a lot of benefits. So
what are the benefits?
Yeah, so you get an Office 365 license for the year. You get access to a bunch of the dev tools through MSDN. But kind of the more important thing is you get more direct access to the product teams themselves. So you sign an NDA, so you get to hear all the latest, greatest secrets. Stuff. And then they get early access to stuff, and then they get put on a distribution list, so they can actually email. And those emails drop directly in my inbox and into my boss's inbox. And as we've grown our mixed reality program, I've pulled in more and more of the engineers and the program managers from different parts of the product group who are interested in hearing what the MVPs have to say. So they really become instrumental in helping us build the product and giving us feedback. And sometimes it's just to say, hey, I really love this, and sometimes it's like, hey, this is completely broken. And both of those are completely valid and valuable, feedback mechanisms for us. So
one thing too about the MVP thing is if it's something that sounds interesting, but maybe you're thinking, well, I don't really blog that much right now, or I'm not doing that. Like now's a good time to start. So it gets to a point, right? Everybody started somewhere, and I feel like I remember looking at MVP before, and it can be a little bit intimidating. And so I just think it's one of those things that just get out there, start going to meetups, write about something you built. That was the other thing, is like you probably are building something cool and you don't even realize how cool it is until you start writing about it and you're like, this is an interesting story. So I think that if you're already at the point where you've been doing that a little while, like, reach out. But also if it's just something that like, this sounds really cool and I'm excited about it, like start doing those things. Maybe you're doing a side project of something you're really interested in. Maybe it's the hackathon. Like I would love to read a blog about somebody that did the hackathon and about the process of like building whatever they decide to build, what like amazing project it is. So those are kind of some cool ways I think maybe to get started too and start that path towards MVP-ship.
Yeah, and earlier, Cassie, you had mentioned the MVP Summit as well.
Yes, that's right.
Something else
that's another
for
perk.
MVPs.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, even the like employees, everybody gets really excited. I've never even got to go to one. I want to go to one. I always hear about them.
It's been virtual since you've been in the product team.
Oh, that's right. So maybe next year I'll get to, because we did speak at the virtual one. I didn't, but someone on my team did this year. But no, I think like that part, people would get really excited to talk to the community. We get really excited to hear and like meet and connect and all of those different things. So it's exciting for Microsoft employees and the MVPs that get to attend.
Yeah, so the summit happens every year. It usually runs a couple of days. Obviously since COVID, it's been virtual, but before that, a bunch of the MVPs from around the world, they all converge on Microsoft campus.
Yeah.
And they get like direct one-on-one, in-person interaction. And then while it's been virtual, we do a lot of virtual sessions for them. But again, talking directly to the engineers who are building the stuff, getting sneak peeks at what's coming. And like all geeks and nerds, they love to go deep on the science. And sometimes those are some of the best sessions. It's not like the latest, greatest thing, but it's like, here's how we solve this super difficult problem. And in all the nerdy details that they just love to consume.
And it's helpful to understand how the product actually works too. Like I love those details because then it also helps you understand how to use it too. Like when you don't necessarily need to, but when like I remember working with different product teams when I was on the developer relations team and hearing them talk about the things that they're passionate about and what they're building was it was inspiring to hear and really, really interesting to be like, oh, that's how that works. And like that's what the back end of that looks like. Like that's interesting.
Or you find out like this thing that doesn't work like I think it should, there's like a really valid reason that it doesn't do it the way you want it to.
Definitely experienced that one too. It's like, oh, okay.
So and I know just a moment ago before we started chatting, we did get a chance to take a look at the, oh my goodness, the name is skipping me now. The Zappy's Playground, yes. And just in general, overall cool experience, but it makes me more so think about just some of the work that we have coming up that you and I are even working on together with our two teams, which is just workshops. As a whole, I will say one thing, and I'm sure you can attest to it too, but over in cloud advocacy, one thing that we're asked more often, if anything, is can you do a workshop? Can someone come do a HoloLens workshop? Can someone come do a workshop on this or that? And I would say, for us, we're a smaller team. And so historically, we've done them virtually. This year, we've had a chance to start doing some in person, which is always great because especially if it's a HoloLens workshop, it's great to be in person because then you have a chance to try with the HoloLens. But from your side of the room as well, likewise, you've also been in those situations with doing workshops. But can you tell the folks what we have going on as we're now heading into summer and onward with regards to workshops?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, workshops are pretty pivotal for getting people to experience things like the devices. And when you're talking about other technology stacks, you can do a web workshop on any computer anywhere, and most people have something that they can use to write web code and run it. And it's really low overhead to go do a workshop. So anybody can go create a workshop on web technologies or Windows development and stuff like that. And so when we start talking about HoloLens, it gets infinitely more difficult because one device is $3,500. Trying to outfit an entire workshop with it,
like 20 of them.
It gets really expensive. And that's something that we recognize, and we get a lot of asks for it, as do you all. So what we've been doing, spending our budget wisely during COVID, is starting to get a cache of equipment so that we'll be able to go out and start doing these workshops.
Awesome.
So like what Brent showed in the last session, that's like a Unity and editor tutorial that we'll be able to go out and be able to kind of work through that with people in a workshop format. I know you're working on a workshop at a more entry level for Mrtk 3. And then we've got a vendor that's doing another workshop for us. So we're starting to get this library of workshops that we can go do, and we've got the equipment to do it, and we've got 20 HoloLens 2s and 50 PCs that'll be all set up so we can really kind of show up and really deliver these workshops. And so what we're really interested in is people who are running meetups or have code groups or your school and you want to do a workshop, definitely reach out to us because we want to get out there and get people starting on this, because once you've had that device experience, it's really hard to stop doing it. And the more and more that we get people excited about doing it, the more experiences we have, the more ideas, it just starts building on itself.
The HoloLens too, like just the times I've used it, it just like, it is mind blowing. It's so cool what it can do, and it's hard to explain. I feel like the thing with both VR and AR, it's hard to really explain how cool it is until you experience it. And when people get that, their face lights up. I love seeing that part when people like try it for the first time and their face lights up. So like these workshops are not good for people that want to start like building, but also like to try the device out and like get into the community and start to learn. Like even if you have zero knowledge, like.
Yeah, when you do a lot of these demos and we talk about it internally, like one of our metrics is like time to smile. When you put that thing on, and like especially when you get like the opening experience and there's like this hummingbird that's that's just glitterly, blue and purple and beautiful colors, and it's flying around, and you put your hand out and it follows. It's like you immediately get people to smile, and it's not anything they're thinking about. It's just this unconsciousness.
Exactly. Oh yeah, it's a really good moment. And I will say, even just for the past 6 months or so, like I've been traveling to schools, So I know sometimes when folks think of HoloLens, you think of some of the larger companies that we're working with, but it doesn't stop there. We definitely go beyond that. And for myself, as I've been doing some traveling, having a chance for students to try the devices out, having a chance to also have students partake in workshops as well. And so I know I currently have a running list going of educators who have reached out to me to come and do workshops with their students as we're heading into like the fall school year and onward. And so to your point, if folks are like running a meetup, for example, if you happen to have just like a student organization, if you happen to be a professor, for example, reach out. And it doesn't mean that it only has to be from an academic audience. That's just a bucket of folks that we engage with. There's just so many more. And so it's always great to get with us, and we'll put on a good show. I feel I mean,
I love to get on a plane. I love to go eat food in new places, and if I can go teach some people in the meantime or come speak at a meetup, like I'm totally game, and it's one of the best parts about my job.
So where are these workshops happening then?
So I can say where I've been this year, but I would say in general, as we're moving forward, it's just a matter of who reaches out to us. To have
so it hasn't been like decided yet?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, the calendar, we're coming into a new fiscal year. The calendar's pretty wide open. So yeah, we're excited to get out there, especially as things are opening up a little bit. And I know I don't want to get like super overly hopeful that everything's back, but we're doing an in-person event here on a kind of a smaller scale, but we're kind of ready to get out there and start getting in person with people again. So
that's awesome. So like that's those meetups that you're talking about, like from all over. Now would these be US based or would it be global? Like
no, I mean we go global.
Cool.
Pre-COVID I did a conference in Poland. We did a community conference in London. We went to like Unite Copenhagen. So we're definitely, and I was supposed to go to Japan like April of 2020, and it just was so sad because the Japanese developer community is so massive, and it's a community that's really gotten to the point where it's self-sustaining, and they put on a lot of events, and we have a cloud advocate, Mrtk, on our team, who's amazing, and she's super tied in. So I was supposed to go there for like 10 days, and I think we were gonna hit like 15 events in 10 days because there's so much excitement. And so I'm definitely hoping to get over there when things open up a little bit more.
They're like their own subset community of HoloLens developers. Like it's a really, really large community.
And they're super enthusiastic. Like they go and the ones who speak good English will go and translate a lot of the workshops or a lot of the materials.
Yeah.
And then they post it so that their entire community gets to benefit from them.
Yeah. So it's always amazing. So yeah, to your point, global. You know,
that's awesome.
It takes folks reaching out to us.
Yep.
You know, if you reach out, but I think given the spite that we've had to put things on pause for the past 2 years, it has given us a chance to start being more strategic about things like workshops, so we can ensure that we're able to have the resources that we need to actually go out and deliver these things. And even if we're talking about like Mrtk3, for example, and given the fact that there is that cross-platform support, you can for sure do more instead of just with the HoloLens.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's the really, one of the really great things about, we call it #open, and it's like our open source and our open standards. So, Mrtk is an open source project. OpenXR is an open standard that our devices conform to, and most of the XR devices these days are starting to. So with that, like, you can really write your code once and deploy it to any device that fits the standard. So
that's super powerful.
Yeah.
And important, like, because porting things to different platforms and different things can take a long time.
While I would love for everybody to go out and buy a $3,500 HoloLens and let's really start kicking this off, the reality is, a Quest is super affordable. And it's a lot of people's kind of entry level into this world. And I'm sure there's developers out there who have bought a Quest just for playing games on it, and we call them VR curious. Like, they've got one, they play games on it, and they're just starting to be like, I wonder if I could write something for
What's this developer mode?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I love doing. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I love doing the WebXR stuff on the Oculus. Like that's a really fun development flow, and doing like Babylon JS stuff. And I think like that's been one of my, like, a lot of my favorite projects, I think, have been doing that development flow.
Yeah, and the Babylon stuff's getting super interesting too. They just released 5, and it's got even more XR features and some Mrtk visual assets and stuff. So they're actually doing a session here at Dev Days that'll get recorded and put out because we're not live streaming that one. But if you're a web developer, it's an interesting time for you to start getting into this as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say. For the past 6 months with your team in the Microsoft Reactor, I've partnered and did the Journey into XR series. And part of why I started that series is, for one, more folks were getting more into the, how do I get started with this? Like, whatever this is, how do I start this? You're taking the Scott Hanselman
approach of, if I get asked a bunch of times, I might as well just
Exactly. And so with starting that series, one thing that I really wanted to emphasize to the community is there's no one path. There's so many entry points. And because of that, I really wanted folks to get an idea of these are the various different things to consider. These are some potential ways you can get started with it, but do know that depending on who you speak with, someone's going to give you a different perspective. And so from doing that series, I would say it was really to ensure folks had somewhat of a lay of the land. And even as I was planning out all the content for that, there were still new things popping up.
Right.
So I had to take all these new things into account as well. But with that said, for folks who, even today, who are more of the learning just now, even by attending Dev Days virtually, and they're like, I really want to get started, but where do I start? I would say in that series, there are videos available within our mixed reality playlist, and I think it's at the Microsoft Developer YouTube channel also has them as well. But just know that there's just so many different paths. If you want to become a HoloLens developer specifically, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to take the web route, there's nothing wrong with that either. If you want to do the VR, you can do that. I would say, like, I do all of them, to be honest with you.
You may start with one, but you're not going to stay there.
That's true.
You really do venture and kind of move around. And even just recently gotten more into doing like 3D modeling, which that's a whole separate avenue, But there's just so many directions that you can take. And I think even if we're thinking back to the hackathon, as you're thinking of projects to create, that's also a chance to really kind of get an idea of like what other possibilities are, because you might be working on a very specific feature for your own project and you're like, you know what, I kind of want to like tap into this a bit more. And that's what happened with me with speech and how I really just went down a very deep speech related anything rabbit hole with anything related to mixed reality, and doing a lot with cognitive services, as I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And so whether it's like speech to text or any sort of like translation, that really became like my thing for a while. And, you know, since then I've started to transition into other things, but like for a moment, that was my thing and that was my path.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it has to be the only path that you pursue.
Right.
You know? Like
And I
at
think
all.
cognitive services is a really cool way to start adding AI into your projects too.
Yes.
Because, and if you don't know what they are, they're pre-built AI models that you can just use in the cloud, and it's just a web API call out. So you don't have to like know how to build the model itself. You don't have to figure out how to do inferencing in Unity and Unreal, even though you can. But then there's also models you can go grab if you want to use like pre-built models. So there's like a lot of different ways you can start building AI into your projects. But cognitive services is like a really good place to start.
It's got some cool ones that are super immediately useful, especially with something like HoloLens, you know, face detection. So you can actually, you know, take a picture with the camera on the HoloLens, send it up to the cloud, get that face detection, figure out where it is in 3D space, and then you can, you know, draw a box around the person and or whatnot. So yeah, speech to text or translation, and you know, especially as you know, early on when we were doing cognitive services with mixed reality, there was a lot of like manually tying these services together. Like if you wanted to do translation, you had to first, you know, send your speech up and then get it back, and then you had to send it back up for translation and get it back. And now, you know, cognitive services has evolved over the years as services do, to where like instead of it being 3 calls to do something like that, it's just a single call and it gets all done, which is awesome.
And there's also containerized cognitive services as well, where you can run locally, so you don't always have to call out as well. So it's a good thing to know if you have things that need to run on device. But yeah, no, there's lots of really neat ways. Another one, object detection, I feel like would be really useful.
That one's pretty good.
Yeah, we did a hackathon with in our San Francisco reactor with Springer, who does a lot of tech or scientific journals and like science magazines and stuff like that. And so they actually came down and did one with employees and guests, and they were doing object detection where they were training models on like the chairs and stuff that were in the reactor, and identifying them, and then pulling up scientific, you know, stuff based on the materials that were in those. And doing like all these complex, you know, stuff, and you know, in like a 3-day mini hack that they were doing, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Leveraging pre-built services are good for hackathons. So those that are thinking about participating in the hackathon, if you're a student, you get a free, I think, $200 credit. But then also the cognitive services, even if you have a paid subscription, there's a lot of like, you can use it for free for a while.
Almost all the Azure services have that. You know, even when we talk about like Azure Spatial Anchors, has a free tier of like 10,000 requests a month that before you start getting charged. So yeah, you know, those are really great resources to start trying to tie things together.
Yeah, not to mention, we also just have samples.
Yeah.
That you can go, you know, browse and take a look through. And I know we have an entire section in our mixed reality documentation where it's just a long list of samples that are available for various different things. And so if you're looking for inspiration or just trying to understand how something works or how to get something to work, I would say.
And you know, it's funny because you do this long enough and you go look at people's apps that they've built and look at their code. It's amazing how many times I've gone and looked at somebody's application where they took one of our samples that are open source and it's completely okay for them to do this, you know, but they start swapping out, you know, their stuff for what we put in there, and they build their own app, you know, with the framework of what we did as a sample, and you know, then built on top of it. And so that's a super good way to kind of get started as well.
So are there sample apps that are like good to use as a template? Because like the templating thing of starting with some things like preloaded and ready to go is really useful, which it sounds like they were able to use some of the samples and do that. Is there a particular sample that you recommend to start with, or are there ones that are templated for different types of like base experiences?
I'm not sure. It's been a little while since I've been out there, and
I would say the former is more to answer. From when I took a look more recently, there are some that are just kind of like full projects, if you will, but then there are some that are more feature specific. And I think that it will definitely, those particular samples are probably better suited for that, where you can really kind of view it more as like a template, I would say, to start with that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start because I feel like getting started is often the hardest part, right?
Right.
So having something with some base things.
Yeah.
And I'm always one that like to reverse engineer how things are working. So like seeing how it does work, then taking it and pulling it apart is also like, even if you don't end up using that project, it's going to help you understand, you know, how things are working and how to put the stuff together and how to use it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just say there's also that, like, if you go start a project from scratch, there's usually an hour of just setting stuff up and boilerplate and stuff before you get to do like show a cube.
The actual
and
stuff
like,
you came to
you
do.
know, and for people who are new to this, like the AR version or VR version of Hello World is show a cube.
Yeah.
Like just in front of you, show a cube. Like super simple. But sometimes it takes an hour to get there. And so having those samples where you can go and you know, there's already a cube and you change the color of it or something like that, and you get that, you know, in 15 minutes you have that serotonin of like, hey, I accomplished something.
Yeah.
Like that's super powerful.
It's exciting. It makes me think of like the IoT one, like where you blink a light is the Hello World for that one. And I was so excited about the blinking light. Like when you get into a new technology, you will get really excited about something like really simple. And I think like with mixed reality, different apps that I've created, I'm like, I've never been so excited about boxes until I started. Because like it's like a box and you can change the color and you get so excited about it. And it's just like those simple things, but it's like it just opens up the door. It's like, okay, now I understand how to make something work. And that's like that foundation that you can build on.
And I will even say also as we're looking at the progression of the technology, and I'm sure both of you can attest to it, the getting started itself has significantly changed over time. So I think for some folks who might just, you know, be brand new and they go to make their first project and they're like, oh my goodness, there's so many steps. A while ago, there were even more, you know, steps that you really had to go through. And I think every time there's a new release for something, and this isn't just specific to just Mrtk, but just in general, when you're getting started across all the different toolkits and such that's available in our industry, things are improving. And I think even if you think about like the mixed reality feature tool, for example, before, like we had to go to GitHub and get the packages ourselves, right? And then figure out all the important stuff.
And imports, and you miss something, and then all of a sudden, like your scene pops up and everything's magenta because you missed, you know, getting the shaders or.
Yeah, so it's definitely come a long way.
It has.
Yeah, so even with, speaking of Imra, the feature tool, the new Mrtk3 packages, they are there. Grace did mention earlier that we now have more so kind of spread things out a bit more, but it's to give folks more flexibility to decide which packages they actually want to bring into their project. So you're not necessarily forced to have all these things that you don't need in your project.
A lot of feedback from Mrtk2 was, you know, you kind of had to take big chunks of it at a time, and you know, if you only wanted the shaders, you got stuck with a whole bunch of other stuff. And so they did a really great job of being able to go in and kind of piecemeal that out so that you can just grab really specific stuff. And then, like you said, with the feature tool, it does kind of that dependency checking. So if you grab something that does need one of those other packages, it kind of does that work for you instead of you having to, you know, comb through the documentation, figure it out yourself, or troubleshoot it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's nice. I remember, I think I like was pulling things out with the old one, and I think I like deleted something that was affecting something else. Like I've definitely broken things that way in the old one. So it's nice to hear that it's easier to kind of grab the things that you want.
I will say definitely happy with just the matter of ease in terms of how we've gotten to with getting your project started. And even once the packages get imported and now you're in Unity, there's things in place to, you know, fix different things that might need to be set up here and there, which is really great as well. But I had a chance to take a sneak peek last night at our documentation for Mrtk3, and with regards to all the packages that we do have pages dedicated to each package to give more of an explanation of like, what's this package, what's that package, like why you might need it. So just in case, if you're wondering, like, you know, we went from 4 packages to like way more now. So if you're trying to figure out what's what, we do have that documented, which I think is really, really great.
Does the sample project have like all of the packages in there?
I think so.
So you can start with all of it and kind of play around?
Yeah, so the sample project that I've tried out, and there is an example scene for really a lot of, maybe if anything, all the features probably, I want to
Yeah,
say
that's
that,
right.
and just because we are in public preview, the team's definitely very much still iterating on what's there. But I would say if you're trying to get a perspective of how different things work, how things are set up, definitely checking out really any sample project that we put out. But for the one that we have around Mrtk3, yes, you'll find all of that in there. And Jesse had mentioned earlier that I was working on a workshop, and literally going through the samples that we had is what helped me put together the project I was doing, just given that it was a matter of, we were still a little early on, so we didn't quite have all documentation. Now, it's a new day. But even for me, having to go and reverse engineer the samples to get to the point to where, the project made it, I would say leveraging the project samples, like super, super helpful. And that just goes back to, from what you were saying with regards to earlier, just having a sample.
Oh yeah.
And reverse engineering it in general. And I think our Mrtk team does a phenomenal job at the samples that they create to really get an idea of how things, things are structured, and especially when the devs leave comments in the scripts. So.
I mean, I think that's a testament to that entire team. They've got great PM leadership, they've got great engineering leadership, they've got great engineers, they've got great designers. So, the assets in there are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And seeing them rendered in, in things like Quest or in the HoloLens, and seeing the lights and the textures and everything, it's super amazing. And that team's great, and we're super proud of all the work that they do.
Yeah, and a lot of them, they're here in person,
Yeah.
which is great. And
and we get to talk to them
And we
too.
get to talk to them. That's probably even the better part of it all. But I would say just in general, I can't wait. I mean, outside of Dev Days, I can't wait to get back home to California and start creating things with Mrtk3, especially when we're talking about VR. And I'm just excited to go do more.
Yeah.
Especially as we're now entering, as you mentioned, a new fiscal year, which means new content that's coming,
content
down
coming.
the pipeline, and that just makes me super excited. So,
Definitely.
It's definitely been,
Do you have ideas of what you think you're going to build with the new one?
Yeah, and
Is it top secret? Can we
there's
know?
one for sure that I want to do. I'm not sure if we're announcing anything related to it for Dev Days, so I'm going to reserve on not saying exactly what it is. But what I will say is, it'll be worthwhile. I will turn it into a workshop as well, so that'll be helpful for folks who want to learn, and it is going to be VR based. So that's going to be something that's more new, I would say, in terms of our content. But yeah, I would say, Jesse, this has been wonderful. I'm so happy that we had a chance to come and speak with you, or you come and speak with us today.
Maybe I'll pop back over more and talk some more in between sessions.
Yeah, you can sneak right on in.
Awesome.
So we're going to go ahead and get started to head into our next session, everyone. And that's going to be a session on actually getting started with your very first Mrtk3 project. Yay. And you'll actually get a chance to get an idea more about what we were actually speaking about with regards to getting your project set up and configured. And then from there, you're able to just go create a whole new world of your own. So hope you enjoy the session, and we'll be back later.